Hey everybody, welcome to the live stream tonight. Welcome to the Beak Squad. All right. So many of you are already logged in to the chat. Appreciate you guys showing up tonight. Big shout out to all of you for being here tonight. Lots to talk about. Going to be talking about any questions that you have. We're going to just be ripping through questions. I'll try to answer the best I can. Just remember, even though I'm a EAS certified master beekeeper, I don't know everything. Yeah, you have to get 85% passing score on your field test, lab test, oral test, and your written test. So I guess there's 15% of stuff you don't have to know, something like that. But I'll do my best tonight to answer your questions. Big shout out to everyone. Thanks again. I appreciate you being here tonight. Busy day around the bee farm today. Terribly busy. And wow, it's fun. It's good to be busy, but a lot of stuff going on. I'm sure it is for everybody. So hope you've enjoyed my videos this week. I've been pumping a lot of videos out. And hope you've enjoyed them. If you haven't had a chance to look at the new videos that I've made this week, be sure and check those out. Some of those are just beautiful beekeeping tips. I focused on my horizontal hive yesterday. Told you guys about how I set it up, what's it all about, how you run it, and who made it. So you want to be sure and look at that video. And just a lot of good beekeeping tips. I try to make my videos that will always be helpful, whether you're a new beginner or you've been doing it for a while. So thanks so much for watching my videos. So yeah, any questions you guys have tonight, that's what we're all about tonight, throwing up those questions. There's Doug. What do you do with wonky comb? Clean it out? Well, wonky comb, that's stuff that really sometimes isn't really attached to the actual plastic foundation. It can happen to wax foundation too. Maybe it's parallel to it. Maybe there's a bump out. Maybe it's just uneven. And what happens is bees can build some wonky comb long before you can even think about what to do about it. Best thing to do is if you catch it early, try to tear it down before it gets filled up with brood and before it gets filled up with nectar and honey. That way you can take that extra wax and either smash it back down into the foundation, excuse me, or you can melt it down and apply it to the foundation. So there's no easy answer. Sometimes wonky comb is so huge and it runs parallel to the comb. There's just nothing you can do but leave it and wait until winter and keep that wonky comb frame in the lower box. Overwinter that wonky comb frames in the lower box. That way, when you come, out of winter, you can actually go in that bottom deep and just tear it out. Won't be anything in it. That's one way to deal with it. I just got done with my bike ride, so I'm a little bit out of breath, and that's why I'm coughing a little bit too. Kind of got a dry throat. Hey, Eric Scott, good to see you. Drought impact to nectar flow. Yeah. It depends on how severe the drought is. Obviously, if there's a big drought and everything is burned up, there's not a flower to be found. It's going to be really difficult for bees to negotiate that. Angela, thank you for your donation tonight. Really appreciate that. Wow, you're getting off the super chat, super stickers to a great start. So I appreciate that. But I'll tell you, Eric, my experience in droughts has been very good. Because when it rains a lot, yeah, you might have, good blooming flowers. But if it rains a lot, you're not going to get bee time. They're not going to get flying time. They're not going to get gathering time. So during a drought, they get to fly every day. So unless it's real severe, bees are going to go out there and they're going to find nectar sources. So it just depends on how severe your drought is. I always make more honey during a drought. Hi, Phyllis. Good to see you tonight. Best post-swarm hive inspection advice. I added a second deep 4 weeks ago, then a super, then I guess they swarmed again, huh? Best post-swarm. Yeah, well, wow. I assume you mean they've swarmed twice on you, even after you gave them room to expand. Or maybe you meant I don't know which you meant. Then a super, then swarm. But anyway, best way to control swarming is by always making splits if you can, and taking the old queen away with that split, like make a little nucleus or something with that split. If your hive swarms, usually most hives will swarm once a year, reproductive swarm, and they won't swarm anymore. Other hives will swarm 2 or 3 more times. Sometimes it's genetic. So Phyllis, you might want, if your hive has swarmed twice now, you may want to get a different type of queen. It might be kind of a genetic trait swarming there. If it's not something you're doing, like not giving them enough room, sounds like you're doing all the right things. Sounds like it might just be a genetic trait. Some bees swarm a lot. So try a different breed of queen, see if that can make a difference. Yeah. Hey, Michael Smith, David, can you talk about how to take care of bees during a dearth? I think the most important thing, Mike, is just to make sure that you do have some water for them. If it's really dry, bees do need water to actually wet down their honey sometimes. Add water to it. It can get so thick. So they need a water source. If you don't have one nearby, you need a water source. If it's hot and dry, then you might want to provide some shade for your bees. If they're out in the sun, take a 4x4 piece. Well, take a piece of plywood, cut it in half. That's a 4x4, 4 foot. Lay it on top of the hive and put a brick or a cinder block on it. That will give you a good shade. It's like putting an umbrella. Keeps most of the sun during the hottest part of the day off of that hive. But water source, shade is going to be the most important thing. Absolutely. Good question. Hi, Nikki. David, do you still do regular inspections on your hive during the main flow? Absolutely. Yeah. Actually, Nikki, during a good honey flow, it's a great time to do a hive inspection. I've heard people say they're not comfortable with it. During a honey flow, it might interfere with the honey coming in. But I like it because a lot of the bees are out foraging and the population is lower. A lot of just house bees in the hive. So it's easy for me to do inspections during a flow. And, I'm pretty quick. I don't want to tear it all the way down to the bottom board, but just checking to make sure your queen's laying well. Yeah, that's important. So it's up to you, really. Hey, Michael, I did a hive inspection today. I found some mold on the top cover above the top feeder. What should I do? Sometimes that mildew stain is not a significant bother. It may just mean that you had moisture in the hive and that mildew or mold might have grown. And for the most part, mildew and mold doesn't really bother bees at all. I know beekeepers don't like the looks of it. We don't like it, for humans, but I've played and done experiments with moldy comb. Doesn't bother bees. They seem to clean things up. It does stain wood, and probably what you're experiencing now. And that's just the way it is. I've got the same thing going on in some of my hives as well. And I just don't worry about it. Yep. Not too important. I want to appreciate all you guys for leaving those super chats, super stickers over there. I see those, Thomas and Brian. I really appreciate that a lot. Thank you, guys. Okay, Hunter, how are you doing? Oh, from Louisiana. It's in the mid 90s now. My brother lives in Ruston, Louisiana. Hunter, I just got, I was reading Hunter's email when it went away. Sherry will probably put it back there in just a minute. Hunter, there he is. Just got my first nuke around a month ago and maybe a little longer. Is there any type of feed do I need to give them now? A good 5-frame nuke really doesn't need fed if there's good nectar flow around, because it means that, there's honey inside that nuke, that the nuke provider, like when we make up our nucleuses, we make sure there's honey and pollen and nectar for that colony to do really well. If it rains for a week or two, then they got plenty of food. If you transfer them over to a 10-frame deep, it doesn't hurt to feed them, so they can have more sugar water to pull out the frames, to draw out the comb. So feeding them 1-to-1 sugar water will speed up comb production. Absolutely. Sure will. Hey, Brian, good to see you. What do you do if your hive has a lot of nectar? Hive, 2 deeps, and a super. So has a lot of nectar, have 2 deeps and a super. I guess you rejoice that your hive has a lot of nectar because that turns into honey. I guess you're thankful for that. If you feel like they're nectar bound, if they have so much nectar in there, two things to consider. Number one, do you have a queen issue? If you have a poor laying queen, oftentimes she's not taking advantage of the open brood cells in a deep box because she can't lay that much, that prolifically. And the bees just start putting nectar where, okay, if you're not going to lay there, we'll put honey there. But if you have a very prolific queen, then the opposite will take place. You'll see your queen filling up every cell possible. I've seen queens lay on top of pollen in pollen cells. So check out, make sure your queen's got good brood pattern. And I mean, a lot of brood. And if she doesn't, you might want to replace her. But the other thing is, you just have such a strong foraging force that they're bringing in such nectar. They're running out of room. So give them more boxes. Maybe give them more. If you had drawn foundation somewhere above them, you could get them to put that up above. Hey, Linus Ritter, to graft, how long do I wait if the queen laid the egg today? And then how long before I put in the cell builder? Yep. Typically, we want nothing older than about a 3-day-old larva. So I go by the appearance rather than, I can't guess the exact age. But when I look down into a cell, Linus, what I'm looking for is about what appears to be a comma on a printed page, a tiny little comma. In other words, it's open like this. This is getting too old if it starts to go like this, the larva. But it has to be an open C. I can't do this. It has to be an open C like that. And so that means it's very young. It's just a 1-day-old larva since the egg was laid. So on day 3. The other question was, and then how long before I put it in the cell builder? Once you graft it, you need to get those into the starter hive, the cell builder ASAP. Keep wet paper towels on them. Move them over there immediately with all those nurse bees in there. Hey, Dean, how are you? A new beekeeper. Way to go, Dean. I remember when I was a new beekeeper. Wow, it's a learning curve. It's just sometimes terrible, isn't it? 3 weeks since installed my nuke, feeding, heavy population and brood, not building out new comb on wax frames. Would you suggest checkerboarding? No, I don't like checkerboarding on brand new packages or brand new nucleuses. Checkerboarding to me is something you do more in a very, very strong colony when you have 10 frames, 20 frames packed, and you need to kind of checkerboard it to spread out the brood nest area. Kind of hate to do it while things are still building up like that. They need to kind of stay tight and build up as a small little group of bees and to get bigger. If you're having trouble, let's say building out a new comb on waxed frames, I wonder if you mean there are plastic frames that are waxed or they're wax foundation with wires in them. But anyway, be sure, and if they're plastic, add more wax to them. You can't add enough. And if they're wax foundation, try to spray them with 1-to-1 sugar water. And again, feed from the top. 1-to-1 sugar water takes 11 pounds of 1-to-1 sugar water, nectar, honey, whatever you want to call that carbohydrate, to produce 1 pound of wax, for the bees to produce 1 pound of wax. They get a lot of wax to build. They have to have a lot of resources to do it. That's some tips. That's about all I got. Hey, Joe, how are you? What to do about honeybound? I have a double deep with a honey super on, but they aren't storing nectar in it. They're filling up the top deep. Joe, I have some colonies that do the very same thing. And back in the old days, when I first started beekeeping, I remember that was pretty common, and that's what we wanted up here in the north. We actually wanted most of our honey to be up in that top deep going into winter. I still have hives that do that. Works out really well for me. They stay low with their brood. They just move up into that top deep. I know it's not the best of things. We kind of like having 2 deeps running a lot of brood and put our supers on top because we've industrialized beekeeping so that they make a lot of honey above 2 deeps. I understand that in the midsection up north like this. Further south, they use single deeps. But You can do the same things we've been talking about. You can add wax to those honey supers if they're not really drawing them out yet. If they're not storing in it, you could try putting it between the two deeps with queen excluders, above and below it. If you can't find your queen, make sure she's not in there. But you can just put it in the middle of the brood nest area, see if they'll pull it out. I may do that in a video tomorrow because I've got one doing the same thing. Yeah. Carol Livingston. Hi, Carol. Hi, David and Sherry. Just requeened a hive with a mated queen. How long should I wait to inspect? Yeah, if the weather's nice, Carol, they're going to go and remove the candy from the queen's cage. And within 24 hours, the queen will be out. She will start to be fed really prolifically from the other bees around her. And probably within a day or two, she'll start laying a lot. So I would wait at least 7 days. It's going to make it easier for you to find eggs the longer you wait, of course. If you go in there 3 days after she's out, she may only lay a little circle of eggs on the 9th frame, and you'll have to look at all the frames to find that. So wait a little longer, just make it easier on you to see maybe even larvae that's larger. Good question. Freedom Meadow Acres. Do you clip your queen wings? No, I actually don't. I don't feel good about that. I've read some bee culture articles from the 1800s about it. When they, believe it or not, in the 1800s, they were arguing about beekeeping stuff just like we do today. Nothing's changed. Same arguments. It's quite amazing, actually. If you don't know, I write a article for bee culture every month. I have a column in the Bee Culture magazine, so check that out. It's a really good magazine. But anyway, I don't like to clip the queen's wings. When I first started raising queens a million years ago, I did it. People wanted me to. They thought it prevented swarming. That's what the old, adage was, I guess, the old thoughts. But now, no, most people don't do that much anymore because we found that when the queen tries to leave with the swarm without her flight wing, she just crashes to the ground. Hey, Tom, thank you for that very kind gift. You're the man, Tom. Appreciate it. I'll get back to the queen question on the wing just a minute, but I want you guys to know that I'm going to try to answer questions whether you donate money or not. Somebody once said on here that I won't answer a question unless it's in the form of a donation. That's not true at all. If I do that, it's accidental. It's not purposeful. But I got to be honest, it's easier to see it when you make a donation because it's a big color. I can see it better, and I'm old and blind, so don't take it personal, but I'll try to answer everything. But clipping that queen's wing is horrible. There's veins. There's veins in those wings, people. That's part of her anatomy. We don't even know how important those wings are. And I just don't feel like we should injure her that way at all. It just sounds cruel to me. I just can't bring myself to do it anymore. But anyway, if she tries to fly out, she'll fall on the ground and the bees kind of just, what are they going to do? They can't swarm, or they'll swarm out down there with her. I've seen that before. Or they'll go back in and kill her and raise another queen and swarm with a new queen. So yeah, not a big fan of clipping wings. Okay, I caught a swarm 2 weeks ago. When should I start treating for mites? Good thing about a swarm is they broke their own brood cycle by swarming, right? And that broke the mites' brood cycle. Anytime there's a swarm or the queen, there's a gap, they're going to have to build a comb before that old queen starts laying again. And then but there's mites on the bees when they swarm. Get this, when a hive swarms, mites go with them. They're parasites, right? It's on the back of mites. And then the small hive beetles go with them. Can you believe that? Small hive beetles actually travel in a swarm. Yeah, can't get a break, can we? So I don't know. Why don't you wait until they get established and get some brood going, at least one cycle of brood. So maybe wait 30 days, somewhere between 20 and 30 days, I think would be good to wait. Let them get settled down. Fun to learn. It is fun to learn. Just curious if during winters I'd using the sugar water jar method with your feeder system, or is it the Winter Be Kind method more effective? Yeah, I don't like feeding bees liquid in the winter time. I think some people do it. My personal preference is I think it produces too much liquid in the hive and in the gut of the bees, and they don't get a chance to go potty. So it's like putting all your kids in the car on vacation and making them drink and soda pops and water and lemonade. You got to stop at every restroom every 2 miles. So harder candy allows them to pace themselves longer, and they have to dilute it with their own saliva, enzymes, moisture from the hive to eat it from the winter be kind. So I prefer the winter be kind. 50 degrees Fahrenheit is the rule of thumb. I don't like to feed liquid if it gets below 50 degrees Fahrenheit. It gets too cold and bees are starting to cluster. They'll eat candy above them in a cluster. Hey, Ed, how are you? When grafting queens, can you leave the grafting frame in the nuke till the queens are about to emerge and then put them into their own respective nukes? And grafting queens, can you leave the grafting frame, okay, in the nuke till the queens are about to emerge? Leave it in the starter hive, you mean? Leave it, leave grafting frame in the nuke till the queens are about to emerge. Well, the queens emerge in the finishing hive. I'm a little confused on your question, so let me just clarify it for you. Once you do your queen grafts and you have this frame that you've been grafting from, right? It's a frame that has eggs and larvae and pupae on it and bees walking around a little bit. That frame, it needs to go back to the hive to be cared for. There's a lot of brood on there. There's a lot of larvae that needs fed. I wouldn't necessarily put it in. I would not put it in the starter nuke. That would be devastating, because all your nurse bees will nurse all the larvae on that frame and not take care of your grafts. And yeah, you could drop it back in the finishing hive. Absolutely. That would be fine. But I just put it back in the hive I got it out of. Simple for me. Good question though. Yeah, it took me a while to unwrap that. All right. Hey, Aaron. My canola honey crystallized very hard and very fast. Is there any way to make it presentable to customers? Yes. Put a label on it that says raw, natural, crystallized canola honey. Special crystallized honey. Crystallized just for you. Easy to spread. Melt in your coffee. I don't know. Just you got to use things like that. I'm not saying this to be silly. I'm just saying it's so hard to get it back to a liquid state. I've got all kind of methods that I've used over the years. Those very big heater prods that go down to 55-gallon barrels and all that stuff like that. Yeah, it's hard. You just have to figure it out, I guess. You know, you're going to have to heat it to get those crystals to melt. Sorry, Aaron, I don't have any good advice other than it's a hard thing to deal with. Sorry about that. Sorry that happened. Hey, Mike, is there any evidence that a hive can recognize the pheromone of the beekeeper? Let me think. The pheromone of the beekeeper, the smell of the beekeeper. Is as far as evidence, like a study, I can't put my finger right now on a study. I am sure there are studies that show that. In reality, absolutely. I believe the bees are very capable of detecting the smell of the beekeeper, right? I've read a lot of books that say you don't want to go in there smelling like body odor, or, you know, if you just worked on your car, you got grease and oil all over you. You don't want to go in there smelling like motor oil. Of course, we've heard that you don't want to eat a banana because they can smell a banana. That's the same smell as the alarm pheromone, even though we've done studies and that's not the case. But, you know, so yeah, they can pick up our odors. And sure, I firmly believe that bees can take a sniff and say, oh, that's David. We like him. Or, oh, that's David. We don't like him. Because some hives I go into, I can tell they're like, get him. And other hives are like, hey, David. I'm going to go with yes, but I don't have time to look up that study. Andrew, what are the pros and cons of letting the colony make their own queen? Okay, the pro is if you like that past genetics of your queen that they're replacing, you get to keep some of those genetics, most of them, a lot of them. You get to break the queen's brood cycle if they raise their own queen. So it takes 30 days to get eggs. So you'll break the mite's brood cycle. Those are some really good things to happen. The cons are you're going to have to wait 30 days. And if you're got a low population of bees in there, it's not worth it. It's better to buy a mated queen. You're only out a week and you got a mated queen laying eggs again. But then you got, who knows genetics, right? You bought a queen from somebody that said it's the greatest queen ever. Is it really? I mean, is it going to live up to what's advertised? You won't know until you've had it a while. Oh, that's pretty good. Pretty good pros and cons there, if I do say so myself. Hey, James just received 2 green drone comb frames. How do I introduce them to an 8-frame hive with 2 brood boxes and 1 super? Brood boxes are full. Yeah, if you're committed to use them, James, they are good Mite Control. For those of you watching don't know what a green drone comb is, it's usually a plastic lime green, all plastic frame, and the foundation is of a larger size for drones. What is it, 5.8 or something? It's a little bit bigger drone size, and the queen measures that and doesn't fertilize the eggs, lays drones. Mites prefer young adult drones or drone larvae, and they'll go in there and you can capture your mites by pulling it out when they're kept over and freezing the green drone comb. In James's case, he's got 8-frame hive and all the frames are full and he doesn't know where to put the green drone comb. I'm going to pull one of the honey frames outside the brood nest area, James. So maybe 2 frames, 2nd frame from the wall, or 3rd perhaps, but certainly 2nd. Take that honey frame out, harvest it, save it, freeze it. Might want to give it back later to your hive. Put it in there. Let that green drone comb work there. If you put a green drone comb in the bottom deep and the top deep, it's a little more laborious to get to the bottom one, but it has a much better effect on killing mites if you take them out in time and freeze them. All right. Good question, James. You guys are really popping me with questions. Hi, Brenda. So confused if I should split my hive, want honey from it this year, but have another top bar hive I want bees in. Baited with no luck, split with mated queen, no swarm cells. Wow, that's just mind blowing. If you want honey this year, Brenda, I would not split a hive. I want to keep it together. I need a lot of foragers to bring nectar in. And so I don't want to split if you want honey this year. But it sounds like you have another top bar hive. I want bee. Oh, I see. So you have an empty top bar hive. You want to put bees in there. Baited it with no luck. So you put maybe some lemongrass, hoping to catch a swarm or something. Yep. Split with mated queen, no swarm cells. So best thing to do is, hold course if you want the honey from the other hive. Get the word out, Brenda, that you want a swarm. You want to catch a swarm. And because sometimes, people call me and say, David, there's a swarm. I don't want it. I've got too many hives now to deal with. So I could just say, hey, Brenda wants it. So you could go get it. So get the word out there. Maybe you can drop a swarm in it. That's usually how I added bees to my top bar hives. I would just put swarms in there. Yeah. Austin, Vicky Moore, I appreciate you guys leaving comments on YouTube on my videos. I see you guys leaving those comments, Austin and Vicky. Thank you. How many hive bodies should you have on standby for a single hive? I think, if you live sort of like in the Midwest or the North, most of us run 2 deeps for a hive. If you live in the, Mississippi South, you can get by with 1 single deep. Some people in the North run single deeps now, but so you're going to have 2 hive bodies on your 1 hive. But here's the kicker. Listen up, all beekeepers, all beak squad, listen up. So important. So many beekeepers get 1 hive and they're so happy, or they get 2 hives and they're so happy that everything's going well, but all at once their hives swarm. And guess what? They don't have any equipment at all. They're putting a swarm in a shoe box, in an empty Amazon box, in a clothes basket. You can't put bees in boxes like that. They'll comb everywhere, right? So please, right now, well, not right now, when the live stream's over, order yourself at least a bottom board, a deep, 10 frames, a top cover. That'd be your, I have a swarm box. And always have it with you. Sometimes I used to drive around with them in my truck or car because I'd be driving down the road to see a swarm. So as a beekeeper, get ready to catch a swarm. So I hope that helps, Austin and Vicky. Have enough in case your hive swarms, you're ready to go. Or if your hive expands, you can get them up to 2 deeps each. Hope that answers your question. Hi, Nancy. How do you add wax to a wax plastic frame? Oh, a waxed plastic frame. Does that mean a plastic frame that already has wax on it? An all plastic frame? Yeah, well, simple. I would add wax by the way I show in a lot of my videos. I've made 3 or 4 videos recently on how to add wax to frames. Melt it in a like a big, 3-inch skillet dedicated for wax. Melt it, buy wax on Amazon, melt it down, pure beeswax. Get a paintbrush, turn the burner off, let it start getting a little tacky. That's a fun word to say. Wax is tacky. When I say let your wax get tacky, everybody knows what that means. You put it on there too untacky, not tacky. It's too hot. It can warp your plastic. So let it get a little tacky. Get it on your brush and brush it across liberally. Lots of it. Yeah, bees will love that. Hey, Rusty, thanks for your donation. Love your horizontal hive. I do too. Have you ever tried a Lands hive before? This is my first year with one and has been an adjustment trying to figure it out. I have never tried a Lands hive. A Lands hive is a horizontal hive with a 13 by 16 frame, where I'm using a Langstroth. My horizontal hive is Langstroth, which is 19 by 9 approximately frames. So the Lands hive idea is that bees have a little more depth to them. To the frame, so they might do a little bit better having that much space. Brother Adams, and where was he, in Europe somewhere? Brother Adams, yeah, I'm saying that right, I think. Buckfast bee guy. He always had those real deep, what they called European frames. I can't remember the name of that, but they're the real deep frames, and I think they really do well. But they're heavy. Oh my gosh, you get one of those full of honey, and you're hanging onto the little ears of the frame. they're really heavy. I'm going to have to try a Lands hive. Everybody talks about Lands hive. Okay, I'm going to try one. Can't do it this year. I got too many bees this year, keeping me busy. Hey, Sam, good to see you. Is it okay to use a deep box with deep frames as a honey super? First, before you do that, Sam, go to your, hey, Mark, thanks for the donation. Go to your phone and look up a chiropractor really close to you and make an appointment and have your back adjusted first, because you're going to have to visit your chiropractor very often, because you're going to actually make a deep into a 10 frame honey super, and it's going to weigh 70 to 80 pounds. I've weighed them before. Yeah, about 80 pounds, about 7 pounds of honey, 7 to 8 pounds of honey per frame plus the box. Oh my gosh, I used to do that. Painful. Not right. It's wrong. It's no good way to grip a big deep box. These little finger holds, you're holding your arms like this, you're having to pick up in a worse, can't bend your knees sometimes because it's already too high to begin with. So if you got a strong back, go for it. Big mountain honeybees. Stacy, what happened? Had 3 queen cells, so I made a split, and just now only found 1 cell. Sounds like maybe they were superseding and they didn't need all 3, so they killed 2 and kept 1, or 1 got out and killed the other 2. You know what? When we try to figure bees out, unless we were there to witness it, there's not much evidence to tell us what happened. Hey, Todd, how are you today? We will have 100-degree days in the coming days. I have a screen bottom board, but should I vent the lid? Yes, and yes. Vent the lid. You can vent the lid, the top cover, by putting something like a popsicle stick. It's pretty thin, or a nickel or a quarter or a dime or a penny underneath the top cover. Thank you, Dean, for your donation. Thanks that you enjoy the courses too. I appreciate you saying that. But put a little something under the top cover. Maybe not big enough for bees to get in there, but big enough for air to be pulled or pushed out. That's going to help a lot. Yep. Vent those hives. You see those bees in the front just pulling air out. It's crazy. Hi, Sarah. Is it really too late to do a split on New Hampshire? I wonder if that means New Hampshire. Probably. I'm trying to think what other abbreviations. I would think in New Hampshire, but on New Hampshire throws me. Okay, so in New Hampshire, yes, I think it's a little too late to do splits unless you're such a good beekeeper and you're very, very talented to feed your bees, to monitor them, to do every 2 weeks do an inspection, and you already have drawn comb and you have good experience on feeding your bees, then you could probably get away with it. But the old saying goes, let's see if I can remember it, a swarm in May is worth a bale of hay. A swarm in June is worth a silver spoon. A swarm in July ain't worth a fly. So that's kind of the same scenario of a split. Austin, I have screen bottom boards. It's wood and metal. I haven't used my Zawislak vaporizer on it because I don't know what will happen to the 9-volt Oxy 1. Have you used Oxy 1 on metal screen before? I have not, but I do know that Zawislak acid, the vapor, does seem to corrode some of those screen bottom boards, but I can't give you any advice. I have not been in that scenario. Sorry, Austin. Let me check my time. Oh, yeah, we got good timage. All right, Cliff, how are you? Should the opening for flight deck bottom board be 3/4 or 3/8 in summer? Good question, Cliff. Let me clarify this. In the old days, back in the old days, bottom boards were called reversible bottom boards. Whatever happened to reversible bottom boards? Did they just go away? Did we just like, nobody said anything and they just disappeared? What happened to reversible bottom boards? So a bottom board used to be built with 3/4 of an inch opening when you put the deep on it. But if you took the deep off and flipped it over, the other side would naturally fall to 3/8 of an inch. So we would reverse our bottom boards for winter because we were told to. We didn't know any different. So that's a reversible bottom board. Today, I don't know if they're made that way anymore. I don't know, but they're not called that. They're not advertised that way. But in the wintertime, 3/4 inch is what I go with. In the summertime, 3/4 inch is what I go with because I don't want to do all that work to reverse my bottom board. I use an entrance reducer to change the entrance thickness or width or however much you want that to be open or closed. Just use an entrance reducer. Good question. Wow, we're always out of spoons. I don't know where our spoons go. Question. In the queen course, there's an amazing video of queen piping. I couldn't find the answer of why do they make a piping noise. We have, I don't know if anybody has ever had a conversation with a queen, beeped back at them and interpreted what the beeps mean. But we have noticed that the piping does occur oftentimes when two queens are in the same hive, and they'll be piping like that in a way of saying, hey, I'm going to find you. We're going to fight it out. I've seen that a lot. I've seen piping noises. Sometimes I've seen, I think in my queen video, I had a battery, a queen battery bank full of mated queens, and they're all going, me, 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 me. They could still be saying, I smell you, and if I ever get out, I'm going to kill you. Also, I think, though, they're actually calling for food. There's been some studies done. People have made speculations. So, the sky's the limit what we think that piping noise. I swear I've heard worker bees make that noise. I don't know. Andy, I have a poorly mated queen. Spotty brood, lots of drones. She's small. Can't find her again. How do I go about replacing her if I can't find her? Thank you, David. Good point, Andy. Here's what you do, Andy. Get yourself a whole bunch of queen excluders and slap them in between every box on that hive. Wait a week, go back in, find the box with those spotty eggs in them or whatever they are. Or maybe you'd even, you're actually just limiting the boxes that you have to inspect. In other words, you're going to find by queen excluding her. Of course, if she's small, she might squeeze through the queen excluder and ruin this experiment. Otherwise, that's going to be tough. It really is. It's going to be tough. You'll never be able to replace her because if you give them a new queen, they'll kill your new one. So, but I'd use the queen excluder, see if you can confine her to a box and fire her and hire a new one. Mike, is there evidence that lemongrass oil helps attract a swarm? How is it used? Any lemon smell does attract swarms, absolutely. There's a Swarm Commander. Is that the right? Am I using the right name? That works excellently. And a lot of people do just buy lemon extract or the lemon extract, whatever. That's what I've used before. It kind of stays when you pour it onto something. It's got a little alcohol or whatever, and it kind of burns itself into that. But bees, if you've ever smelt a swarm or even a package, you get that smell. And so when bees are kind of looking for where do we go now, it kind of smells like that Nasinoff smell that the bees give off. And it's like, might fool bees that this is where home is. It smells like home. I mean, if you wake up in the morning and you smell bacon cooking, I mean, you know that it's morning, that it's going to be a great day. And so that's what lemongrass does. It attracts swarms. Absolutely. Mark B. Is this my brother, Mark Burns? So does the queen ever sleep? And how about workers? Inquiring minds want to know. Yeah, bees actually do sleep, but let's call it rest. And they rest. And what I've understood in my research is they are almost on the same cycle that we are. Seems like they rest 8 hours, roughly. I have observed in observation hives my queens resting, sleeping, fearing they had died. Yes. And then all at once they move around. You've probably seen bees that gotten into your buildings or your rooms, and you'll see them upside down. They sleep upside down on a ceiling. Pretty cool, you know. But yeah, they rest. They have to rest. Yeah. I didn't have to answer if they dream. Although they're doing more research and they really believe bees actually have feelings and they have emotions. That's pretty strong in it. Joshua Smith. Hi, David. When should I stop feeding my bees for them to know to make bees of winter physiology? Also, what are your thoughts about OA vaporizer? Yeah, wow, I've said a lot about that. So number one, that is the key to overwintering successfully, is to, once the nectar flow stops in your area, and it's not going to happen anymore that year, then wait about 2 weeks, 14 days, because the bees will say to themselves, uh-oh, we don't have any nectar. We have to do something because we're entering a dearth. They start shifting to winter dearth physiology. They do that in other countries, such like in Africa, where it never gets cold, but it stays warm, but they may have a dearth and flowers aren't blooming. So we call it dearth physiology. And what's going on is, it's not so much they're wanting to have bees that survive winter. They're having bees change the way that their physiology works in such a way that they stay ready to take over again and start raising brood and start doing the things they were doing before the dearth. Otherwise, they would be aged out and too old to build comb or feed larvae. And so they have the ability to live 4 to 8 months. So wait 2 weeks, and then you have to feed them. If you don't feed them, they can't raise bees of dearth physiology because there's just no incoming food to power up the nurse bees to make royal jelly. Yeah. Oh, OA vaporizer. I'm not a fan right now of using OA because studies show by Cameron Jack of Florida, Dr. Cameron Jack, he and I speak together, and he's done studies that show unless you increase the dosage to an illegal dosage, it has no effect on killing mites versus controlled colonies. So the current dosage of OA vaporizer vaporization shows little effect on controlling mites, especially if you compare it to Formic Pro, which is killing the mites below the capped cells, and you can do it with Honey Superzon. Yeah. Prospecting with disabilities. How do you know if my hive has a brood disease? I have no sense of smell. Okay, good question. Probably the most predominant disease that has a smell associated with it is American foul brood that smells like, well, you'll know it because you'll lose your cookies once you smell it. Everybody asks me, what does American foul brood smell like? Smell it, and if you want to throw up, that's what it smells like. It's that bad. But if you don't have a sense of smell, look for the telltale signs of greasy brood, perforated brood, holes in the brood. Take a stick, poke it down in the brood, the cap brood, and then draw it out slowly. And if it draws out kind of sticky and breaks off, a half to an inch long and breaks off, snaps back, that's American foul brood. So you don't always have to smell it. Go for perforated brood and do the little toothpick test or a little stick around, see what happens. That'll help you a lot. Mr. Approachable, thank you for your gift tonight. I found one of the queen in one of my new hive is dead and gone. I moved a frame that had a bunch of eggs from a good hive and put it in there. Is there anything else I can do, or just wait and see what happens? You can always buy a queen if that queen is dead and gone. That way you get brood quicker from a queen that you purchase. Of course, you can learn to raise your own queens and have some queens hanging out in nuke boxes around your place. And that's always got my queen ready. I need her. So I've encouraged you guys last winter to raise your own queens. But no, there's not much else to do. Hey, Mark, thank you for that super sticker. You're very kind, Mark. But not much else you can do about the queen. It's going to take 30 days if you're going to let them raise their own. And I just did some videos on that. You can go back. I've got a timeline too, a video about, 5-6 videos ago of the queen development timeline. Just what you're going through. That's fun. Yep. Ira Weatherspoon. I have a second deep hive body. I've checkerboarded the lesser drawn foundation frames, or should I remove and harvest the honey? You know what? Without really doing an inspection alongside of you, so many times if I was there and I inspected your hive with you, I would have more data. I would have more information. I would have more, feeling of what I see and what to do with it. One sentence or two sentences, makes it tough. But I would say if you have your second deep hive body and it has not so many drawn frames out, maybe some frames that have honey in them. I always like to let the bees do what the bees do best. Until they get filled up and kind of get overcrowded, I'm not going to checkerboard them. I have. Recently I did a video where I took a hive apart. I made a split. I gave them 5 frames. I checkerboarded those frames in their deep box, and they're slowly drawing them out. But you can do that. It did steal a lot of power from them pulling out my honey super, because 5 deep frames is a lot of wax to build. So they just didn't go up to my honey super and work it because they were busy getting their brood area filled out. The trade-off. Why is my honey cloudy? Honey is usually cloudy because it has suspended particles in it. Those particles are usually air particles. Air is not really a particle. I guess it kind of is, or it could be very, very minute, small wax particles that could be present if you did the crush and what's it called? Crush and destroy method. But you get a lot more wax in your comb sometimes. Sometimes it's very, very fine crystals, tiny little crystals, and they might get bigger. But I've had that too. I've had people sell me honey that's very cloudy. Tastes okay. I like it. Some of the reasons it could be cloudy. Yep. Angela left a long info comment earlier. Question: should I feed them to help them draw comb in the super? Yeah, now that's kind of tricky because you don't want your honey super to be filled up with sugar water. They'll still invert it, invertase. They'll still do their thing with their enzymes, even with sugar, table sugar, but it's still kind of honey. But you want more natural honey from flowers to be up there. But you can feed them, help them draw the comb out. And once you see the comb starting to be drawn out, you can stop feeding them and put them back on their own nectar sources? That's a good question. June bug. Haven't seen any yet. Well, maybe I did see it. Lightning bugs are really, fireflies are really powerful here in Illinois. Last night, we had so many fireflies. Crazy. How can I change a solid bottom board with one having a screen? How can I change a solid bottom board with one having a screen? Does that mean you have a screen bottom board that you want to make into a solid bottom board? If that's the case, leave it the way it is and take something like corrugated plastic, like a politician sign, and slide it under or in the bottom board, and it will block it off. Yeah, that works good. Hey, Bob, thank you for your gift. Beautiful horizontal hive. Checked out their website, and they really make some nice equipment. Can't wait to see how you do with yours. Looking forward to the progress. Yeah, that's right. It is nice. We really do enjoy. I like it. It's very comfortable. I'm hoping to overwinter my horizontal hive. So we'll, fingers crossed. I've already been thinking of how to feed in the wintertime a horizontal hive, and I've come up with some great ideas. So looking forward to that. But they're going gangbusters. Yeah, really going good. Blaine, good to see you. Thank you for your gift. Can I harvest a deep frame or two out of my deep boxes? I have a lot of honey in there. You can, absolutely you can. Be quick about it, or have another drawn comb frame to put back in its place, but don't leave it empty. A lot of people make that mistake. They'll pull it out, forget about it. I've done that. The bees love that space. They'll love to make a wax in there, comb in there, and attach it to your, they'll attach it to all the things you don't want it attached to. Yeah, but you can harvest it, take it out, harvest it, enjoy it, put it back in. I understand you're wanting to make more room for the queen to lay. Remember, if they're putting honey where the queen should be laying, we have to question the quality of our queen. Why isn't she laying better? Good question. Moss. Hi, David. I'm an Aussie living in Western Japan. My son really wants to visit Japan, by the way. And I am wanting to start beekeeping on my farm next year. Can you recommend a video book? Do you think same principles of beekeeping would apply here in Western Japan? Be honest with you, I have no idea. But do I have a book to recommend? Yeah, Sherry and I wrote a book, Backyard Beekeeping, Everything You Need to Know to Start with Your First Hive. That's a great book. It really is good for a brand new beekeeper starting out. We spent a lot of time gearing it just for that. Best thing to do is to ask beekeepers in your area, what kind of principles they employ where they live. But you can check out the weather. You can compare my weather to your weather, see the differences, and make that change. But that's really exciting. Good for you. Yeah. Hey, Thomas, I've got a swarm that moved into a trap in my backyard. Oh, good for you. That's what Brenda needed for her top bar hive a minute ago. How long should I leave them before move them to their new home? I always try to move them quickly, because if I don't, I'm afraid they're going to build comb. They're going to send scouts out. They're going to, all the foragers will memorize that location. So I usually will move them out of a swarm trap ASAP. As soon as I see them in there and they settle down, they're coming with me. Yeah, all day long. Let me see what time it is. 54. Tracy Blevins, how long before a newly hatched queen goes on her mating flight? All depends on the weather. Typically, once she emerges out of her cell, chewing her way out, she'll walk around for about a week, and her wings actually have to harden up for flight. They're a little too flimsy at first. So after about a week, she's capable of taking a mating flight, but she has to have good weather to do that. So poor queens, by the way. Gosh, they are very good targets for dragonflies, birds. They get eaten so quickly. Catherine, the queens are small this year, very small this year. Not laying well. It has been in the mid to low 50s up until 2 days ago. Could this mean they are not well mated? Not laying well. Possibly. Usually a queen is not mated well. Yeah, it could mean, obviously it could mean that. I'm just trying to think of what else it could be. But the cold weather and maybe not a lot of nectar coming in, maybe they're not feeding her well enough. Maybe the hive isn't strong enough to feed her so that she can lay abundantly. I think I've mentioned before, sometimes you can have a weak colony and a great queen, but she doesn't lay well. And sometimes you can have a weak queen and a great colony. So you kind of have to know which one of those you're dealing with. Again, those are hard things to know. We'll take a couple of more questions. If it gets really, really cold, could you add a heating pad or blanket to your hive to save them? Not the best idea, but of course you could. I mean, if you had a small struggling colony, obviously the best thing to do is use those plant heaters. You can buy those at most department stores. They don't get extremely hot, and you can put it under the hive to make a little heat. And that's probably what you want. If you make them too hot, the bees will probably think it's summer. They're going to fly out and die. Kind of a bad trade-off there, so be careful. Tom, if I send you a coffee mug, will you do more coffee time videos? Oh, I know it, Tom. I want to do coffee time. I really do. I'm going to. I've got some time next week that I'm going to be away, and I'm not going to be able to be in the bee yard as much. That's going to be coffee time week, I think. Yeah, it's got to be. It's going to be happening either early morning or in the evenings. I've got some projects during the day I'm going to be working on away from my apiary yard. So I'll try to do that. I love doing coffee time. Straight quick apiary. Can you tell from checking the bees if the flow is over and the dearth is on? Absolutely. Go look at the front of your hive, watch them, stand at the side, count the number of bees that are going in and out. 1, 2, count both. There's one coming in, there's one going out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. If you lose count, there's a honey flow. If you can count how many bees are coming, going in 60 seconds, the dearth has started. Kind of look around, drive around, see what's out there. Yeah. Wow, guys, you have run me through the ringer with your questions. I was really just amazed that you had that many questions, and hopefully that was helpful to you. And let me encourage you to please check out our website, honeybeesonline.com. A big shout out to Sherry for managing the live stream tonight, popping all the good stuff up there so that I can see it. Apologize to all of you that didn't get your question answered, but there's a live stream every Thursday night. So thanks a lot, Beak Squad. You guys are the best. We love you. Me and Sherry work hard to help you guys out. We're just giving a lot of our time and effort to make things better for you guys in beekeeping. So I appreciate that. I know that a lot of you watch our videos. Please check those out. I got a video coming out tomorrow that I want you to watch. I actually went to a lavender farm. Lavender is just so beautiful. It smells so good. And I made a very unique video. I've never made a video like this, maybe once. It'd be very good for you to watch this video tomorrow. So check that out. Also, please check out all of our online courses. They're so helpful. And I really appreciate you guys who indeed go and check out our online courses. That means a lot. And of course, B Team 6 is still open for more membership. Sherry asked me the other day, okay, are you ready to close it? We've got quite a few members now. Should we close it? So it won't be open forever because it'll reach a point where, got to be manageable, right? So appreciate all you guys for being here and being a part of all the things that we offer to help you guys be better beekeepers. So my goal is to help you guys keep healthier bees and make fewer mistakes, because believe me, I've had my shares of mistakes. Haven't really had a lot of unhealthy bees, but I've made so many mistakes in beekeeping. But hey, that's how you learn. One thing I want to share with you. Hey, Tom, this is almost coffee time stuff. When you go through life, if you're so scared of making a mistake, you'll miss out on so many great opportunities. It's okay to mess up. It's all right. We all mess up. Don't let your ego keep you from being embarrassed or afraid to make a mistake. Good beekeepers that are very, very good beekeepers, I guarantee you they're good because they made a lot of mistakes, all right? There you go. A little bit of coffee time. All right, guys, I'm going to break tonight. Thanks again. And be sure and join us every Thursday night. It means so much to us. And I'll see you out on the next video.